chokehold of that image, clotheslined by the summon to not age. The calm and calculated is a sham for the chaos within. Wearing fear like a mask, confusing it with respect, grasping for burnt straws. Someone lost grip of the raging wildfire within, trying to be part of the scene. Mirror, our savior lives in a mirror. Looks like me, feels like you, lies like us. Mirror, our savior lives in a mirror. Looks like me, feels like you, lies like us. Oh, say, can't you see through those rose-colored glasses? Is that La Migra for tree trimmers? A singing birthday gram or a gang of niggas? Jesus, Gandhi, where's that sage? Someone hand me that Palo Santo I bought from East Palo Alto. Unsure what to do when they're gone. So now it burns, burns, burns. And when you ring, no one's home to take that call. So you turn, turn, turn. Pages of past lovers, they too have moved on from themselves to build that wall. Mirror, our savior lives in a mirror. Looks like me, feels like you, lies like us. Mirror, our savior lives in a mirror. Looks like me, feels like you, laughs like us. Sweet, sweet king had love in his heart, born a son of a sharecropper, lived as a soul giver. The river never too high to cross, the cross never too heavy to toss. Sweet, sweet king, his birth set us apart, his name across boulevards, across tracks. He once lived as a life, lightning never strikes without a slap. Gifts are useless if not unwrapped. You know, one thing's for sure, love conquers it all. And one thing's for certain, it will be our downfall. One thing's for sure, love conquers it all. And one thing's for certain, hate will be our downfall.
And that's how I professionally start a show. Just like that. Welcome, everybody, to 20 Question Tuesdays. I am your host, Jeff Plankenhorn. And this week, as we know, my guest is going to be Kalu James. We were just listening to a couple of tunes, amazing tunes, including the brand new single Downfall that we're going to hear in its entirety later in the show. Just a little bit for those of you who have never seen this show before, basically what happened was I just turned on my camera early on in the pandemic and did a workshop one day, right at this time, here from Vancouver Island, where my wife is from and her family, and far away from my roots over in Austin, Texas, where I've lived for almost 20 years. And I turned on the camera and people just started asking questions, but it was all sorts of different people. It was musicians, it was people who had to do with the business, it was writers, it was people who had nothing to do with music at all, and it was really, really beautiful. Shortly after that, Sheila Steele over at Austin Music TV asked if I would put this on her cable access channel, and we did, which is channel 16 in Austin, channel 99 if you are over on ATT Uverse. I think that's basically the way that works. And long story short, too late. There was I had to get an app to go to all these multiple places, and in it I saw this little button that said invite guests. So I thought it would be infinitely more interesting if I started inviting guests. First I had Michael O'Connor, then I had Jamie Harris, then Ray Wiley Hubbard, then Ruthie Foster, all sorts of beautiful people. And I've been doing it ever since, more than half a year, and it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I split tips with my guests. You can see the thing there, just so that I can get them a nice dinner for whoever, or some gas money for whoever's on with me. Last of the housekeeping, I have a brand new single called Murder of Crows, and I can't believe that it's actually getting radio play all over the country without me doing any kind of a push. So that, I have to say, I am so thankful for everybody who has been listening to it, and I'm sure one of our friends will put it in the comments or something. You can go find it. Murder of Crows on Jeff Plankenhorn. Also, every Tuesday night I do my own show. Tonight I will be on at 8 p.m. Central doing another edition of From Here to There, and thanks for everybody who tunes into that. Without any further ado, I should also mention we are now on AustinCityJams.com as well. Just one more great platform where you can see this music, and I always want to thank Kirby for that and try and remind people to go there. You can see a whole lot of great music as well on these many, many, many platforms. Let's see. I think that's it. I'm just going to break into Kalu now and see how he's doing. I've been taking questions from the audience. Kalu, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How's it going, brother?
I really, really dig this, and I'm super, super glad to have you on. I haven't seen you in forever in person. I haven't been to Austin in March, but just getting your face on my screen and your bright African colors, as we were talking earlier, and your vibe is just so it's always so righteous, man. Hanging out with
Thanks,
you.
man.
I remember one time you came up to me. We were like talking in like South Austin music. And I think you were like trying to like figure out like a guitar, like a vibe or something like that. It was like maybe before you got that Les Paul Jr. or something like that.
Yeah. I remember that.
And I just barely remember that too. It was just like one of the first times that we just connected for just a couple of minutes and vibed. And your spirit is infectious, and so is your music, which a lot of people were just listening to in the little intro there. But I'm going to jump right into the questions, because this show is all about the audience questions. It's not about me. It's about what they want to find out from you. And they always have better questions than I would anyway. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And I love this first question is from Mark. And I know it's going to be probably an interesting thing knowing what you do. What was your first instrument? Do you still have it? And do you have, or what is your holy grail instrument?
Wow.
Great, just right off the bat.
I know, man. It's like ready, like line of fire. First instrument was I took piano lessons back in Benin, which is West Africa, right next to Nigeria. But I moved to the U.S. and I bought, this guitar from a store out in Rochester, New York, and I had it for a while, and I ended up taking it back to Nigeria, and there was this man who, who he was one of the drivers, and I think the car broke down or something down the road, and we were just waiting, and he saw the guitar, and he said, "Can I play it?" And he played it, and after he was done, I knew that, trying to take that guitar back to the U.S., excess luggage, blah blah blah, guitar might break, whatever. I just thought right in the spot, I said, "I'm going to hand this over to this man," and I gave it to him. I'm sure he still has it, and I made sure I gave him a bunch of strings as well. So yeah, that was my first guitar, and Holy Grail instrument. Man, I don't really have one. Like I I don't really have one. I'm a singer. I love singing, so for me, it's always whatever is. I grew up in very Christian in an Assemblies of God church back home, and it was back then in the '90s. There were no instruments allowed in the church, so it was all your voice and your hands. That was it, and that has kind of stuck with me. I mean, these days I'm spending a lot of time at home working on tunes, and just that idea of clapping and whatever rhythms that come with that, and being able to project some thoughts into words or into lyrics has kind of been the way I've gone, this whole time.
Well, I think that's a brilliant answer and an honest answer in that, uh, music, and Mark says, great answer, thanks.
Thanks,
You
Mark.
know, knowing when you come from a background where you don't need instruments to play music, then they become a tool for sure. Like Guy Clark used to always say, "Oh, it's just like if somebody dinged up his guitar, he'd say it's just a tool. Don't worry about it, man." Which was really nice for a guy who was usually kind of gruff. Um, but to have a Holy Grail instrument, people think, "Oh man, I want a 1958 Carina Flying V or something like that," and
That'll
it's
be
like,
awesome.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and sometimes you get that Holy Grail instrument that you thought was going to be your thing, and then you just don't learn how to play it.
Yeah, or it's kind of like getting a new car and all of a sudden you're parking so far away.
Yeah, because you're like
Parking
worried about it. I don't want to take this out.
don't want to do this at all. All of a sudden you become a collector. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I didn't even mean for this to happen.
yeah. It's
That's
fun.
why, and that's one of the things I love about JT, my
Yes.
co-conspirator in the band, is, man, all the shows he shows up with. I mean, he runs a studio, and some of the things we go on the tour with. I'm like, hey man, you sure you want to bring this,
You
to
got enough?
you sure you want to bring your roads? And for him, it's always like, that's what this is for. That's
Yeah.
absolutely what it's for. But at the same time, it makes loading in and loading back into the van a very, very, hairy thing when it
Longer,
comes to handling.
longer and more physical.
Yep, yep,
you know,
yep.
which is a mixed blessing as well. Yeah, because I think that people don't necessarily, see through the smoke and mirrors and really understand the load in and the load out and all those kind of things. The things that we really get paid for because we play for free, right? You know,
Right.
it's just like
Yeah.
it's like we get paid for all that other crap. You
We get
know,
we get paid to
yes,
drive and
risk
chill in
our
some
lives.
parking lot somewhere,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe a cheese tray.
Get paid to eat at questionable restaurants and sleep in questionable
Yeah,
hotels
yeah.
and things of this nature. You know what reminds me of though, man, is on "Promise of a Brand New Day," the title track from Ruthie, which is just a stomp, you know, and it's just that's it. And like there's a song, and I'm talking about Ruthie Foster and so many great songs, Chain Gang or anything like that,
Right, right,
that
right.
come from just a rhythm. You don't need an instrument to do it. You don't need an instrument to write. I had a budding songwriter who's going to be at my little workshop with Scrappy on Thursday say, I don't have a guitar right now, and I'm kind of in between places, and I'm like, oh, you can still write. you can still write. Just like he's like, just don't be afraid to just like, throw some stuff down. It might be the
True.
best time to write. You never
Yeah,
know.
right. And I mean, sometimes it requires being quiet. Sometimes for all those things to roll through. I've experienced it recently. I have had, I guess, with the pandemic, there's been, a lot of downtime, and at the same time, what you do with that is, the fruits of that is going to be, whatever comes out, in 6 months or 2 years or whatever. And for me, it's been going through all my voice memos,
Yes.
and it's literally that coffin where all these great ideas are just pretty much waiting for you to pick them back up. And I was going through all of them because I kind of got a little frustrated with just the whole idea of like, okay, this is a time. I mean, I know it's a forced isolation, but this is a time we always are looking for, this time to write, this time to get into this and get into that. And I remember sitting back, and this lyric on the song Downfall
Yeah.
shot back at me that said, "Gifts are useless if not unwrapped." And
Oh,
for me, I just went from, I had this picture of this, this dad who keeps giving you presents, and you don't open the presents every time. And then you keep asking for presents. And at a certain point in time, your dad's going to be like, what are you doing with all these presents I give you, your dad or your mom? So I went back and I went through all my voice memos since 2009.
yeah.
And I found this song that came into my head. I remember I pulled over, and I had the horn section, I had the rhythm, I had every single idea of the song. And I've spent the past 6 days. Yesterday was, or 2 days ago was the day where it was finally done. Because I mean, lyrics came, horn section, bass line, key, everything was right there. So I just went back and I went through all of them. And luckily I have a little studio at the house now, where I'm able to access different sounds and melodies. And there it was at the end. After 5 days, I mean, I knew the song was there, but after 5 days it was right there. It's like, I didn't need any instruments, I needed nothing. I just needed to realize that there was something coming, stopping, capturing that, and doing the actual process of going back and looking through those ideas. And it's like there was a new
Craft.
song, there's a
You,
new
you
song
know,
right there.
and also I think everything that you were just talking about was really really valuable to budding songwriters in a bunch of different ways, like having ideas that you put down that you're going to go back to later, and yes, it may be from as far back as 2009 or even further. Having little notes on your phone for these are song ideas, having little voice memos on your phone for a little guitar riff, anything, big, small, whatever. All these kind of things are so, so, so useful, and you can go back to them. And there has to be a moment where you're open to it, where those two things somehow connected. And I think that's a lot of what being a writer is. It's like it's not. I mean, it just who knows where it comes from, but you're pulling it, you're grabbing
Right,
at it. Peter
right.
Blackstock's on right now, and in his he often gives a thoughtful comment, and he says, "I've thought about that, Kalu, how we might look back at the pandemic as a fountain of incredible writing that happened."
I
And I
believe
agree.
that. Yeah, I agree that one. I agree about that 100%. I had a life that was so, if I think of the longevity of things, so unsustainable. To be quite
Right.
honest with you,
Right.
between shows, and most people don't know this because I think this part of, we are seen as these big extroverts, but there's also a recharge that is so necessary to keep moving forward. And to keep the roof over my head, I drove Uber and Lyft and you name it. Like we lost my dad 6 years ago, and my mom became my sole responsibility because I'm the first. And for me, I switched into things I needed to do. But that meant that I spent 500, 600 miles a week driving. And we're not talking about gigs or rehearsals and all these things. And when
That
the
was on top of
I
that.
was going, on top of that, exactly. So when the pandemic hit, I made the conscious I couldn't do that. I couldn't drive
Right.
anymore. I didn't. My sister just had a baby. I didn't want to put anybody in. I have the band, and it just it wasn't the right thing to do. But I was going nuts because I am so used to motion. But thanks to organizations like Ham, which we're great. I'm so grateful, and I feel like one of the lucky ones to live in a place where you have all these organizations, because I had started therapy about a year before the pandemic. And I realized, I looked at myself and I understood that this was an opportunity for me to like really hone in on what is it that, what makes me tick.
Mm.
If it's not music, like what am I when this image that I've built isn't there? Is there more to me than that, or is that just me? And I realized I've missed reading books. I have
Oh
missed,
man, me too.
just sitting
Yeah.
back and doing absolutely nothing. And from doing nothing is also an active, it's an active thing. There's so much that comes from being able to just listen to yourself breathe and your thoughts and all that. And that led into just this openness of, we were talking about this earlier, and about ideas where I just had to sit with myself and spend time in other people's words and all these things, and of course talking to my therapist about like why am I not writing anything? What's going on? Like this is the time.
There was a bit of a block period, you're saying, as well.
Yeah, there was.
You had to find how to kind of reinvent. Some people shy away from the term resilience when we talk about musicians. I wear it like a badge of honor. I'm kind of like, when somebody first said that to me, I think it was my wife who said it to a friend. They said, "Well, how's Jeff doing during the pandemic?" And she goes, "Well, surprisingly, he's like really resilient. He just snapped and figured I got to do all these other things right now, to survive, and to help my friends survive, and to get along." And I took that as a huge thing, from somebody who doesn't just like throw out compliments, right?
Yeah.
And so we're all kind of doing that and finding ourselves. I noticed, because I follow you, not in any stalker sense, but I noticed that
You can stalk me, Jeff. It's totally
cool,
fine.
right?
I stalk you too.
All right. But in looking at your social media when you took trips and seeing more posts about, I mean, I already knew you were a spiritual cat. I knew you were somebody who could take a step back and look at things. And not all of us, get out of the business of music all the time and can do that. But I noticed through your social media that you were taking like trips, and that you were going places, and that you were out in the middle of, New Mexico or wherever it was, and you're taking trips. Part of that journey was part of the deal, right?
Absolutely, it was. It was. I just, I'd never, like I said, I'd never stopped, and realizing that instead of moaning about what was happening and being able, my way of dealing with it was seeing it as an opportunity and actually being quite grateful. I grew up in a place where, if you lose hope, it's over. 100%. Like once that's done, also being grown up in the church, there's this whole idea, and it's spiritual as well, of like you have these invisible angels that are pretty much waiting for you to send commands to them, and whatever you think in your head is pretty much what ends up coming into manifestation. And for me, I needed absolutely to see it as that moment where I was grateful to be in this country when all that was happening, because I talk to my mom a lot, and people are this. We talk about the suicide rate and the depression going on here, and this is in a country where you have Uncle Sam that says, I'm going to send you unemployment check every week. Back home, that rate has just shot up because our government doesn't look at things like that. So in my whole self-loading whatever that we do, there was a moment where it was very much snap out of it, see exactly what this is, and and take that trip. I've made, excuses for not doing this trip, and where am I going to sleep? Where's all these things? And I realized, okay, my mattress can fit in my car. All the restaurants and bars are closed. National parks are open, and I can sit here and just keep spinning, or I can go marvel at the unknown and come back. Come back whichever way you come back. And I took that trip. I took a 3-week trip, did the PCH all the way up to Bozeman, Montana, and got my very first very first national park card, and
We do
got
the magnets. We do the magnets. They have really sweet magnets at all the national
yeah,
parks.
they do. They do. I did all that, and I came home and understood how fortunate and lucky to do that. And my way of giving back as a sign of gratitude and was to write about these places. So I've spent, since I came back, and also a way to save myself. I live in a small studio, so like after seeing 3 weeks of just things you've never ever seen and come back here, I had moments where I asked myself, did I do the right thing? Because I was, once again, I just started, like wigging out again. So I went back to all the videos and did research on these places I went to. Like, okay, White Sands. What's it about White Sands? Oh, Boyz II Men, Water Runs Dry was filmed in White Sands. Like,
Yeah.
what is it about? Like all these things, and I'm writing about that now, and I'm going to turn it into. I have five cities left, or states that I went to, and I'm going to create a little coffee table book as a way to give back, because I know that I was extremely lucky to do that, and a way to bring someone and people along on that journey is to basically give an account of what I saw.
You don't mind, I want to break in there too as well, because I think that not enough musicians realize that we're born and we kind of feel like lifers. We feel like this is what we do, we have to do this all the time. We don't necessarily feel like other artistic endeavors are going to enhance what we do, or that we feel worthy of doing it. And
Yeah.
so when I hear somebody say to me, I took a trip and I'm going to make a coffee table book, I think that's fantastic. Like everybody I know, when they get to a certain place, they find these things like, Ray Wiley's got a book, and John D does paintings of bears, and some people make jewelry, and some people do stuff. Some of them do it, and they end up making more money
Right.
than they do in their music career, because
Right.
something just kind of takes off and it's a niche. But regardless of that, I find it that everything I've ever done in music, like if I learned about bluegrass, I'd get better at harmony singing. If I learned about funk, I'd get better at learning about layers and rhythms. And
Mhm.
every type of music helped the other. Well, every type of art kind of helps the other too. It's not like reading a good book doesn't help, or listening to poetry, or watching Amanda Gorman the other day didn't blow everybody's
Oh
freaking
wow!
mind,
Wow!
right? And so, with those things in mind, I find it really encouraging when I hear somebody like you say, I have this other artistic thing that I think I should do, that I think I should share. And I love pointing out to people that that's available to them, you know?
It
And
is,
you really just have to be kind of fearless to give it a shot and be ready to fail.
and
Because
be
what the hell? Ready
yeah,
to fail, man.
and that's like that's a new thing for me, learning how to be ready to fail. To be honest with you, I once
It's
again,
hard
it
for us,
goes,
man. It's hard to get
it's
to.
it's hard to do that, and also in my upbringing, my dad was and it's just, there are parts of, I'm getting older, so like there's parts of it where there's a veil that I have, there's a certain image that I have put forward for so long, that finally I'm just, I guess, dealing with mortality, dealing with the amount of people who have passed away over this year, and all these things are getting me more, and I guess just the time also to think is getting me back
Yeah.
to some sense of honesty. And my dad was a chief, a prominent man where I came from, and as the first son, there were just so many things. I like you had to mind your p's and q's. Failure was not an option, and all these things are things that I never really thought were affecting me until
Mm,
until I started going through therapy and realizing, like, okay, even at my worst of days, I got this smile that just comes up, and it's equivalent to, I've said this before, it's equivalent to like a rest and bitch face for me, to be quite honest with you.
ah,
Like it's like it doesn't really explain what's going on within myself, and that getting ready to fail, or being able understand that failure is just that next step, is something that it's taking me a lot longer to get to, because once again, where it came from, you take all the time you need, but when you jump to land.
oh
There isn't no, there's no safety net in any way, shape, or form. You're crossing the street. There are no stop signs. There are no traffic lights. There are no white lines in between. So like it's like right there. It's very much right
yeah.
there. You do this to get to there, and it's only taken me being in a different society, and having, and part of it maybe getting my citizenship as well, because as an
Mhm.
immigrant, I have that mentality of, the storefront, and then you live at the back of the store. That's
Yeah.
my brain is like, there's the never quit, there's the never let up, there's a constant going, and understanding that you can just take a time.
You know,
Just
you remind me a little. Oh, I'm sorry. I always apologize in advance, and I didn't. This platform always means I interrupt my guests, so I apologize in advance. You
okay.
remind me a little bit. Have you read much of Chinua Achebe?
Yeah, of
Am
course.
I saying his name right?
Yeah,
You can tell me.
actually, yeah, yeah.
You know, especially with the things of what's kind of ingrained into a tribe versus coming into, a different society, and
Hmm.
what kind of things. I mean, especially in Things Fall Apart.
Hmm.
Um,
I own
uh,
that copy. I own that book. I grew
yeah,
up. I had to read that through high school, and we're from the same tribe as well, and it's so
I had no
true.
idea.
It is, yeah, it is so true. It's very, very much like that. You have these, you know, people who have a storefront of a lion, and inside, they're a lamb, and
Yeah,
you're surrounded in a society that feels like you can't really show that aspect of yourself, and unfortunately, that that's it works in that society, and sometimes I think it takes breaking, moving somewhere else and realizing that, you know.
you have to do things
You have to
differently.
do things differently. You have to, it just has to be a little different, because that whole scanning of 180
Yeah,
is something it's a survival skill that you need for those places. And it doesn't matter how brash or how calm you're taking in a lot of, and depending on what society you step into, that itself can be perceived as manipulation, because
absolutely.
you grew up that way. It's a
Well,
survival
and it
skill
goes the
for
other
you.
it goes the other way too with "Don't you mind people grinning in your face?" Because it could go, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It can
yeah,
really, really go the other way
yeah,
too.
yeah.
And having that perspective is really good. This kind of jumps into a question from our friend Judy Bloom, who just said
I
perfect.
really.
But Judy says this: Kalu is inherently positive and delivers that energy through his music. And this will probably also go into the video that I wanted to show that you sent me, of the new single. It's a perfect segue into this. Kalu is inherently positive and delivers that energy through his music. Does he ever find it difficult to stay on message? And I'm
Um.
sure.
Wow. I sometimes I do, but it's a choice, right? Like, I have chosen. There's so much music out there that are saying this or that, and I believe in a world where all that is necessary, and there's room for all that. But I made a choice without even knowing it. It's the people I listen to: the Tracy Chapmans, the Bob Marleys, the Fela Kuti,
Yeah,
Jeff Buckley, and all these people. Like, I made a choice a long time ago, that was going to be my focus. But at the same time, um, uh, it's never lost on me. I think to understand light, you have to account for darkness.
Do you want to say what the commonality is for people? Because is it the inherently positive? You know, is that what you find is the commonality between that type of music, or what? Is there a way to put your finger
Um,
on what it is?
I think it's very Nigerian. It's very African. To be honest with you, a lot of the music, when you think of high life, when you think of
Yeah.
you know Afrobeat and all these things, we grew up in a society where there's so much stacked against you on a daily basis, and people go towards music as a form of relaxation. So I
Hmm.
think
And a lift up.
and a lift up, exactly. So I think unconsciously, or whatever, I connected with that. But the music behind the lyrics, the music behind the message, actually, I think informs a lot more of what it's about. I deal, who I am or what is on stage. It's this. I mean, yes, it's light. It's there's a lot of release. Music does a lot of release. There's a lot of release for me through music. At the same time, I am that person, and at the same time, I am a different person when I step out, which is I do account for the dark. It's an
Yeah.
absolutely necessary. I spend a lot of over the past few years, I've spent a lot of time getting to the point where I um, like shadow work. I've spent a lot of
Mm.
time in my own part of like that upbringing I was telling you about, and having to maintain this reputation of this chief.
Yeah.
Was you just never said anything bad about anyone. You had nothing to say. You shut up. All those things were part of my upbringing, and as of recent, I've looked at what I'm writing and what I'm going through in my head, and realizing that at a certain point in time, they started not matching up. And
Mm.
it's only been the past few years, and there's a lot of that in the new music coming out where I understand the contract I wrote, with myself as a little kid, but at the same time knowing that I I don't have to please, like I don't have to please anyone but myself, and which is a tough thing to do when you come from a society that is very community driven. And I'm glad I grew up that way, because that's the foundation of me. And I know
Mhm.
that every time I step out of doing something that quote unquote is not aligned with myself, it doesn't mean that that's who I am. It
Right.
means that I am all these and that as well. And
Yeah.
putting those two together is pretty much some sort of a balance, and I'm trying to get to that balance. But yeah, from the get go, I've always been driven by people who find a way to say and ask the tough questions, but it doesn't mean that the music goes that way as well. It's
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I mean, the way you get to it is different for everyone, right? Before we, because I just interrupted again, but that was not the actual platform. That was just me. I wanna play this video that you sent, because it's touched on so many things that we've already talked about, and it's your new single. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna jump right into it. And because I am not super pro at this, I need to make sure I take off that graphic. And then I'm going to do this, and we're going to cross our fingers and make sure this video works. Everybody, check out Downfall real quick. Thanks for being here, Kalu. And
Thanks
thanks
for
a lot
having
for
me.
Music TV. Thanks everybody for the tips that we split. But check out this video right now, okay? And this is Kalu James in the Electric Joint.
Sweet, sweet king, had love in his heart, born a son of a sharecropper, lived as a soul giver, the river never too high to cross, the cross never too heavy to toss. Sweet, sweet king, his birth set us apart. love conquers it all. And one thing's for certain, it will be our downfall. One thing's for sure, love conquers it all. And one thing's for certain.
I got bad news, everybody. Something says that my thing is not working, and it's only showing the audio and not the video. That's the first time that that's happened. Sorry, everybody. Hey, do me a favor. Everybody stick around after the show, and I'm going to play this song in its entirety out. And let's put up a link right now. Do we have a link to the video that we can put in the thing so everybody can see the video? Because that did not work.
Yes.
We're over on YouTube, right? I'm going to find it and put the link in for everybody because, hey, man, like I told you, something happens every week. This is the first week that's ever happened. So I'm going to look for it right now while we're talking. And there it is. Okay, 1 second. Let me make sure I can share this. There it is. Hit the share, hit the copy. I want everybody on all the different stuff. The audio was fabulous, right? Okay, so that's where you're gonna go and see the video when you get a chance. That's got it on Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, and there. Let me do this too as well. It's not as easy to do this, but you can do this to make sure you go check out Downfall. Man, I'm sorry. It's such a cool video. But this is the deal.
Thanks,
Every
man.
week these apps have something new. I hated cutting in the middle of the song too, but everybody's like, great audio, no video at all. Awesome. Anyway, let's get back. Here we go. I was not looking at the screen, so I didn't notice there was no video. Seriously, I closed my eyes anyway. David Hamburger, really great. We're going to have him on in a couple of months, replying, yeah, but the audio is fabulous. Cool tune, though. Really, I want you guys to get the. I want you guys to get the video and see the whole thing. So please, I'll put that up again at the end. So apologies. What are we gonna do? You know,
gotta take it all.
It's that I like to say it's that touch of unprofessionalism that makes me so lovable.
Makes you so human. Is that it?
No, I'm just being. This is an interesting thing that I like. This question is going to take us in a really. Thank goodness Jeff is so resilient. Hi, Susan. Props to KPFT as well. Such a righteous station. Do you know much about KPFT?
No, I don't actually.
Oh, man, we got to talk about KPFT.
Okay.
And Houston. They're the only radio station that's ever been bombed by the KKK twice.
Oh wow!
And they wear it like a badge of honor, and they have this transformer that they call Sparky that's like all busted up, that's in like a corner, and as well as civil rights and stuff like that. As well as being on the forefront of civil rights, they also play music from all over the place and are key in Houston to just building an audience when you don't have a huge record label.
That's amazing. I'm gonna write that down and check it out.
Yeah, sure. We'll be talking. I'll get you in touch with Susan and Border Radio, and it's public radio is also very important.
It sure is. It absolutely is.
Yeah. So let's get back in here. How do you? This is kind of interesting. I don't know if I have a answer for this, but it's kind of fun. How do you keep from letting a current tune with a good hook creep into your music? Like, if you're writing something, how do you keep from letting a current song? I think that's what Craig is asking.
Right.
And I know my answer for this, which is sometimes I let it because I know when it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
And I also know that 99.9% of the time, even if I do, it's not going to sound like them.
No, it's not.
It's gonna end up sounding like me when I move it into whatever I do. It's kind of like a right. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I was gonna say the exact same thing. I let it. There's this line that I heard a long time ago that says, "Everything you're against weakens you," and I have held on to that for so long because I let it, but like you said, it's not going to sound the same. Number one. Number two, it's probably derived from something else. And number
Right?
three,
They got it from someplace else.
yeah, and number three, like I we fight so hard, like originality and this and that and that, forgetting that actually we are the origin. Like you, the way you think, all that is original. At the end of the day, the chords are the same and whatever. But it took me because I fight myself a lot with this. What's the best way to say? What's the best way for me to say this thing that everybody has heard? I mean, that's really what songs end up being. It's the same
Right?
commonality. It's the same themes and everything. And it took me listening to the song "I'm a Creep" by Radiohead.
Radiohead.
Okay, so that song is seriously melody and chord progressions the exact same thing as all I need is the air that I breathe and to love. I remember driving and that song came on and I was like, hold on,
I know
wait,
this.
wait, I know this song. What are we talking about? And it literally took the fact that the chorus was so much catchier than the verse to forget that or to maybe never piece it together that and because immediately and I'm thinking, okay, so what song came first and all these things, and it was like if Radiohead did it, then I mean, dude, I really at this point in time, like I am gonna keep myself to my true north. But at the end of the day, whatever the influences are, like he said, at the end of the day, it's just not gonna be the same.
It's not going to be the same. And here, you want to hear something really funny? Is that about maybe a year or two ago, there was a Lana Del Rey song that came out, and everyone was freaking out because it sounded like Creep.
I know
And
this
they were
song.
all like, "Do you think Radiohead should sue Lana Del Rey?" And I was like, I mean, I get it. Here's an example of where it might go too far. Ray Parker Jr., I Want a New Drug by Huey Lewis. The
Hmm.
very first copyright infringement thing where
Hmm.
the guys who were making Ghostbusters went to Huey Lewis and they said, "We need a song for Ghostbusters that's like, I want a new drug." And he went, "No, I don't want to do that." And then they wrote a song that has the
Yeah,
exact same
right,
changes, "I
right,
want a new
right,
drug," and then he
right,
just put Ghostbusters on it.
right.
And it's like, well,
You already showed your ass right there. Like
I
you're,
mean, you
you,
kind of already, right?
you already,
So you kind of already did it, and so, so it's kind of a tough call, right?
yeah,
Um, at the same time, most people don't hear Ghostbusters and think, "Oh, that's just I want a new drug." Musicians do,
right,
because we're in it all the time and stuff like that. I
right,
think it's an interesting question though, Craig. Like again, how do you keep from letting a current tune with a good hook creep into your music? Both you and I are both kind of like, well, hell, I let it because it's
yeah.
catchy. What was that other thing? I'm gonna say one more thing. Sorry, I'm talking too much. But Woody Guthrie used to like to write songs to existing melodies because
Mm,
he wanted people to sing along.
mm,
If they already knew the melody, they could sing along with his words.
mm.
He was just like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna like, who cares?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean,
And
there's a part of it where it's like absolute. When it's blatant, it's blatant.
yes,
The noise, it just annoys because it's just like, come on, man. But it's the same thing too. Like what I write a lot of songs or come up with a lot of melodies by going to listen to, um, by going to shows.
yes,
There's something about a chord progression that hits that automatically. I don't come up with songs. I don't come up with melodies, but I come up with lyrics
mm,
or a way to sing. If this was my song,
yeah.
if I was on stage playing these chords, then how would I sing to that? I do that a lot, a
I
lot.
mean, I mean, and what a great exercise too. Two things. Putting someone else's voice in your head and saying, "What would it be like if Willie Nelson sang this song?"
Mm,
is somewhat liberating and somehow makes it easier than what would I do if I sang this song?
I
And
agree.
like in some ways, it's kind of like, well, I think about his conventions and I think about the way he phrases, and of course, and if I do it, it's never gonna sound like Willie Nelson.
Right.
It's just gonna sound like me, maybe humbly being whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and they always, the other thing is people always think something completely different. My example that I use all the time is I have a song where the bass line and the melody really came from a Toots and the Maytals song, and no one ever, ever hears that. I get
Right.
Elvis Costello, I get Tom Petty, I
Right.
get, I get Buddy Holly even.
Really.
Like, how did you get Buddy Holly from Pressure Drop?
From a two to me for pressure drop. Yeah.
Pressure Drop, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But the thing is, when we recorded it, I remember going in and my co-producer Scrappy going, "Okay, are we doing reggae?" And I was like, "Oh no, 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 no! I'll feel like a poser if we did that. Like, how would the Stones do this tune?" There you take all those influences and you go like, I'm gonna take a Toots kind of melody and a groove
Yeah.
and something that feels like this, and then we're gonna put like a Stones idea on it, and then it comes out as something completely different.
Yeah. Over and over and over again. Over and over and over again, it comes out something completely different, and no one else is going to hear but you. And that's the thing, it's like, we spend so much time with, musicians where like we can
Yes.
see this and pick that, and then you realize that at the end of the day, the audience is actually the listeners who are, they love that song, they love you, they love what it means to them. It has absolutely nothing to do with you in some form of fashion, and it becomes pretty liberating when I've been looking at that a lot recently. I beginning of pandemic, when I was talking about not being able to write, I just went into reading. I was just like, okay, I need to satisfy, because I spend a lot of time on words, like like writers do, and I just knew that I wanted to ingest as much words as I could, because I knew that at the end of the day, it's inevitable that when I got to the point where I started writing again, there will be all these influences from different writers. And
Yeah.
then for the music aspect of it, I just opened up. I picked up biking
Mm.
during COVID. I hadn't ridden the bike since I was 14 or 15. And I've gone from that to riding, about 12 miles every other day now.
Mm.
And that mostly was because there was no one on the road. So I was
Yeah.
scared that if I fell, no one was going to
All right.
drive me over, or anything like that. But riding bikes meant that every morning I woke up, I had to pick a new song. I needed a whole album. I didn't care. I went either by name, or it kind of like was like going back to record shops. I went either
A
by
lot.
name, or what's the new thing that came out, cover, and
Or
I just
somebody
had
recommended it.
yeah, just commit to it and just go. And after that, 7, 8, 9 weeks of nothing, when I got back to sit down and write songs, man, it was just this mashup of James Baldwin, meets like SZA meets it just like it was meets Nine Inch Nails. It was just like all these things just like meshing around, and that was like granting myself that freedom to ingest everything that was coming in, because why not? I mean, literally, there is an invisible enemy out there that, regardless of how much you do, there are just certain things that you have no control over. So if there's ever any time to be as open as possible to the fact that you don't know,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where my philosophy has been, the past year is now.
Well, I hate to say things that are always for our budding songwriters and our budding musicians out there, but this is another thing that I think is really valuable. Most of the stuff that we love, that we think of as innovators, is generally an amalgam of whatever they were listening to in some way, shape, or form, and we might not recognize it. Whether it was Bill Monroe or it was Joni Mitchell, it was a mix of whatever they were thinking and whatever they were listening to, and that mix created something that we think of as new. You know,
True that.
it's not
So
new.
true.
It's just what they were digging on,
Mm-hmm.
and they figured out a way to put these things together. You know, what is Hendrix? You know, a mind blowing change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what is Trent Reznor? A mind blowing amalgam of
Right.
different styles, and just to be open to that, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with like writing in a vibe. You know, saying I'm going to write something that feels like this. A lot of people shy away from that too. I tend to keep thinking that it's not going to sound like them anyway. You know,
Right.
it's going to sound like whoever you are. Um, here's a nice softball question
Mm-hmm.
that I love. It's what's your favorite venue to play? Which is impossible. We have
It is
so many
so
great
in,
venues.
in
We have
this
so many
city.
great venues. How
In
do we
this
say that?
city,
Like, do you have a
that
favorite solo, or what comes to mind, or like this is where I love like, because I have some of those. Like I have
hmm
some my favorite house concert, or this is my favorite venue to play solo acoustic and tell stories, and this
hmm
is where I love to rock out with big
hmm
band. You got to you have
yeah,
some favorite venues or places that you some of them
man.
might be gone. Sometimes
Yeah,
they're
I
gone.
mean that's the truth. You know, some of them might be gone right now. The Continental Club stays with my heart forever. I I lived in this. I've lived in Austin since '07, and the Continental Club was one of those places where I never played. I just I moved
It's
here.
a mark, right?
It
It's a
is.
mark. It's
It
a mark that you want
100%
to get to.
is, and I moved here by myself with a guitar from New York. Um, Made it a conscious decision to do open mics because open mics are forgiven. And back then is when you still had the paper clip, paper board or whatever,
Oh yeah.
where you can get the emails and at the same time spend like, 4 hours trying to figure, is that an O or a zero,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. for your
It's
list.
like pre Facebook, and I think maybe Facebook was out there, but it wasn't. Anyways, so I just cultivated and built a following based on on playing open mics, and I think there my brain was like, okay, I don't know if I'm ever gonna get to any of these places,
Right.
and Momo's was one of the very first place. Shout out to Paula Vasey.
Yep.
That all of a sudden I'm meeting all these musicians of just that extra upper echelon that are inspiring me. And when we got the gig to play at the Continental Club, it was like, oh wow, you know.
Right.
I actually this is a fact. I learned how to play electric guitar by playing at the Continental Club. Believe it or not, I was acoustic all the time, sitting down, and we played up at the gallery, and we were there every Thursday. It was supposed to be 1 month. It ended up being 3 years, and over this 3 years, man, I just everything about me changed. It was the place that I was thankful that I had a gig every Monday that turned to Thursday and all that when my dad passed, because that was
Kept
one
me
thing
going.
to look forward to. And I was going through breakups. I was writing these songs where I could work and test all these things out. So the Continental Club, 100% in my mind, hands down. I love the vibe. I love the history. I love that it's been there. When you had whorehouses everywhere. Like
Yeah.
all those things. After that, I love the Mohawk. You know, um,
For
there's just so many places, but the Continental Club, and outside of just the Mohawk establishment itself,
how they do
are
things.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's a great answer. The sound of Cabbage Alley on my phone means that we are getting close to where we will be off of TV, but we will still continue online just to finish the last of the questions. Once again, my guest has been Kalu James of Kalu and the Electric Joint. And just a couple of quick thank yous before I get to the only question that I ask every week. Thank you to AustinCityJams.com. Thank you to Austin Music TV for putting us on the television. Thanks to everybody on Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Also, I always forget to do this. We split tips every week, and I'm really bad at this. I don't even think I even have a thing for the tip jar. There's the tip jar. We'll split the tips. So thank you. This is how I can give my guests, you know, a little gas money or a meal. So I really, really appreciate that. And I think that's all of the stuff I need to say about
Yes,
that.
Peter, you're right. Sorry to cut you off.
What'd you say?
Peter just said something I've often made the case: the Continental Club is the best nightclub in the world. Yes.
Yeah, I feel that too. I feel that too. I mean, there's a lot about it that's just there's just so much vibe. Here, I want to put this back up there too for you guys so you could see it. So before we get kicked off of the television at 1:58 and 30 seconds, my question that I get to ask everyone every week is this: what is your guilty pleasure music? And most people often they say, I don't have a guilty pleasure music, but you know what I mean. Okay, like, because what happened was people would say, everybody knows that I own everything Stevie Wonder has ever done. I have every mono single. I have everything. That was what made me want to play music. It was my first musical influence. But at the same time as my mom was playing classical music and Stevie Wonder, and she was playing all this stuff for me, she also played Barry Manilow records. And I cannot not get like a nice feeling when I hear Copacabana and a dress come down to there, or Can't Smile Without You. And I am not embarrassed. I'm not. And so I like to ask people what they think of as their guilty pleasure music. Do you have some sugar or something that is a little bit, you know, out of the ordinary that people might not know? Sometimes I'm a big Spice Girls fan, and I go, really? You're a big Spice Girls fan?
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, I remember taping, waiting for songs from Cher to come up back in Africa, and then like have to like, you know, tape it, like put a tape and make sure at this time that it's coming through that someone is not saying like, you know, check out this radio station or whatever. Cher, Celine Dion, huge Celine Dion fan.
Canada's in the house right there.
100, huge Celine Dion fan. And then techno, man. Like especially since I've been biking a lot, you need some push. Oh, Linkin Park.
Oh, and Linkin Park. Okay, so some really hard stuff too.
Some very hard stuff. When I moved to the U.S., I was this angsty kid, and I discovered, you know, like you have soft rock back home. I discovered like the real, and I mean, for a lot of people, they're like, dude, get out of here. That's not real rock music. But to be able to mix that back then in 2000 with hip hop, I was so.
Sorry to interrupt. 15 seconds online. Kalu James, everybody, thank you for the tips. We're going to continue this conversation over online for just a few minutes. Thank you, Austin Music TV. Thank you, AustinCityJams.com. Kalu, thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Much love. Wear a mask.
Yeah. Now, we are online now, so we can do all sorts of online only now, so we can do all sorts of calls to action in just a minute. But yeah, man, Cher is a perfect one. I love it. We got people here. Terry, yes, I am also a fan of Low too. We got Bee Gees fans. We got all kinds of fans. Linkin Park is a great example. What did you say before Linkin Park? You said, oh, techno. I got a buddy I'm gonna tell you about. He's been like, he's in Austin and he's a drummer. He put up a post the other day, like maybe 2 months ago, and he was like, does anybody want to sing over some electronica? And I wrote back and I said, always. And I think he thought I was kidding at first. And I said, no, man, I'm always up for doing something interesting. And so I started sending him like, you know, little song snippets and such. I can't believe the stuff he's sending back to me. It's been really, really fun for writing. And I've also done a little bit of that with him and Natalie Price. So if you like techno, he's just writing these really, really cool arrangements that I would never think of because they work in this other world, man.
It is a whole different world, and I think
world, you know.
Yeah, And growing up back in Africa is like you had I mean, there's so much music.
Yeah.
There was so much music coming through, and that's why even like in my writing, most times it's not really one thing. It's whatever decides to come through. But there was so much music we were exposed to. I mean, I'll tell you this, and people think I'm kidding when I say this. You know, my mom used to send me to the markets to go find Kenny Rogers cassette tapes,
Yeah,
and
man.
Diamond Rio is massive in Africa. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm talking the ancient of kingdoms, and you know, there is a guy who's playing "My Love for You Will Never," you know, and he's playing it. There's no lights, so his music or whatever his speakers are connected to the car battery somehow. I
Right.
mean, this thing we get to do, music.
We are so lucky.
We're so lucky. It transcends everything, everything, and it's just a humble that I, you know, get to do that.
Culture, everything.
Yeah,
Language,
yeah.
everything. Yeah, man, I'm with you. 100%. Clue, it's been really, really nice. Hang out online with me for just a little bit more so I can say goodbye to you once we're off air. I want to make sure everybody, let me put that, let me see if I still have that link one more time because I'm sorry about the whole messing up. There's the link right there for everybody to go check out the video for Downfall as well. Please, everybody, tell me right now, you are going to go see the video. You're going to click on it, you're going to like it, you're going to subscribe to Kalu. Now that we're off television and I can do calls to action, I can say, do that, do that, do that. And it would mean the world to me. And check out a lot of their, all of their other music as well. Do you have anything coming up? Because we can do calls to action now that I could let you plug a little bit or
I
anything
mean,
you have horizon?
we've just spent the whole time, you know, writing songs and putting out singles, and I think that's just gonna continue happening. I think we have another one in March. When it comes to
Yeah.
shows, I'm not really sure, you know,
You
what that
gotta be safe.
is
You
or
gotta
what
know
that
you're
is
safe.
like. Yeah, yeah,
Your audience is safe.
yeah. It's we did something over at Empire Control Room, and it was really I was so thankful at how they handled it and all that. And I'm sure you know in the next few months there might be some things coming up, but it's just been a lot of writing, a lot of co-writes. If there's anyone out there, I think I see Kelly Green out there. If there's
Yeah.
anyone out there who wants to do some co-writes, I am so down to do that. Shit, we can write a techno song and who knows, you know?
Well, you know you and I are gonna do it for
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
and I'm grateful. Okay, so the new single is Downfall. Here's the information on how to get to us. Thank you, everybody, for the tips. Thanks, Kelly Green, Joanna, just the people I'm seeing right now. David Alvarez over from KUTX. How you doing, brother? I miss you, man. Susan from KPFT, thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for everybody who's been playing Murder of Crows for me. I am thrilled. I can't believe it's getting as much play as it is on radio. Thank you, Lady D, for always putting up stuff in the comments. That's all the thank yous I can think of for this time. And
Thank you
Kalu,
so much for having me. Thank you for having me, man. And it's awesome to get to do this and meet some new people. There's a lot of names that I haven't even seen. Terry, guess what? I've been doing this thing where I've been looking at tickets, flight tickets.
oh
I
yeah,
follow this thing on Instagram called escape_ATX, and I'd made a pact with myself. I said, I am not going to spend my birthday in the studio this year. So I found a ticket to Hawaii. So on my birthday week, I'm going to Hawaii. I'm going to be Terry.
which
I'm going to hit.
island are you going to?
It's I'm going to Honolulu first, and then I'll see what else happens after that. But I am going to be there for a week, and it was unreal how cheap it was, and I didn't have to pay a dime because I had a bunch of flights that got canceled. So it ended up just being a whole like credit thing. So Terry, I will see you sometime soon.
I got to tell you, your spirit of adventure is also contagious, and I think if you do it wisely and you do it smart, my wife actually was 19 years old, and she traveled for about a month through Africa by herself.
Wow.
I mean, she's
Wow.
like, yeah, I was nuts, you know.
Wow.
But she has regaled me with stories for years, and a lot of it's documented. And you know,
Wow.
that kind of thing. You know, it makes sense. Like musicians, we're just like, yeah, we'll go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, but she's a horticulturalist. You know what I mean? Like she's a
Mhm.
gardener. You know, and so the excitement was a whole different thing.
And I mean,
Um,
I still haven't, I've been to parts of West Africa.
right.
And
It's
I
a big
am African.
continent.
And
It's a
so,
big
like, exactly, not the continent. Like, that's just like,
yeah. It's mind
that's a
blowing.
whole new level. That's amazing. That's incredible.
Yeah, yeah, man. All right, we got people already saying, "I love the video, great
Oh,
song."
cool.
Thank you for that. Carrie just said that, and and also Susan said she was gonna check it out. Adrian Quintero, man, I've been missing your Wednesday shows. He's got this Wednesday brunch show over on Twitch, and
Yeah.
he just plays records, and his diversity from hip hop to world music is such a wonderful way to start your Sunday morning. It's so diverse and so eclectic, and it's all grooving, and it's such a nice thing to wake
Wow.
up to. So anybody, that's like I don't follow a lot of DJs, but
I got to
uh,
check that out. I have to check that
you'll
out.
dig it for sure. Adrian, if you want, just throw that up in the comments there, and me
Please.
and Kalu will see it. Your brunch thing.
I see
Feel
Randy just said that Hawaii might have a 2-week quarantine still. Yes. That's in April. So, like, that's the reason why I got it is yeah, fingers crossed. And at the same time, if there's any place to quarantine for 2 weeks, I'll take Hawaii.
Hawaii will be all right.
I will take Hawaii. I can't think of any other time where I can tell myself that I am going to be that, no one is really, there's no task of like, oh, dude, you got that next gig going on here or there. So, yeah.
Okay to be alone and have a
Right,
moment.
right,
Oh
right, right. In
man, I
Hawaii.
love it. Ooh, you got to try something for me. Do you
Yes,
still eat
sir.
meat?
Yes, I do.
Loco Moco,
Loco Moco.
or is it Moco Loco? I think it's Loco Moco.
Okay,
Okay, so
what
this
is
is
it?
this is a
What is that? It sounds like a
Hawaiian
wordplay.
Hawaiian delicacy, and I
Okay,
should say delicacy like it's like Hawaiian soul food.
okay.
Okay, so Loco Moco is this: you get a bed of rice, you get a nice hamburger, you get brown gravy, and you get an egg on top.
What?
And it blew my mind.
What?
I ate it all the time when I was on the Big Island. And my wife and I have learned to make it at home because we love this meal so much. So you go to, they're going to try and give you the Americanized version,
No.
which is like a big plate full. You
Uh-huh.
just want a bowl. You just want like a nice bowl of it. It's plenty. You see these people and they are fit because all they do is swim. The natives are tough as
Yeah.
nails.
Yeah.
And they eat this. And they eat this, and you look at it, I mean, you're like, you gonna eat that? Like that looks like it's a little filling, you know? And but they work it off. And
Loco Moco.
Loco Moco will change your life.
Carrie just said with pineapple. I
I don't know
cannot.
about with pineapple. I don't know about with pineapple, but
I
I'm
mean,
a when in Rome guy. Like whenever
yeah,
I'm in a new place, I want to know what they eat. I want to know what the locals
yeah,
eat and
of
what they
course,
love.
of
You
course.
know?
I am as African as it comes. So pineapple on everything works perfectly fine. Pineapple, coconut, some ground nuts, and some
Yeah,
loco moco.
I
Let's,
know. I
let's
never
make
get
it
sick.
happen.
I feel it. Oh, look, I think somebody just put up Dan Jason, our buddy, put up a looks like it's probably a thing about Loco Moco. Adrian, I'm happy to let Kalu know that you did the master plan.
Yes. The name was so familiar to me. Adrian, thank you so much. That was absolutely incredible. That was a track we were talking about collaborations, and I did a track with Cilantro Boombox last year, and it was the first time I ever got to sing Afrobeat. I mean, and I
Yeah.
was talking to someone and I was saying, it's it's very telling of the idea of what America is, right? The notion that it takes this Venezuelan, immigrants to get this Nigerian immigrants to do a song that the genre was, came from Africa, or not even Africa, came from Nigeria. I had a blast. I had an absolute blast with that track.
Well, man, I mean, are we or are we not a melting pot? We
Sure.
are supposed to be a damn melting pot. Please, come on.
Yes. Yes.
Rep it.
Yes.
Embrace
Rep it.
embrace it. And as musicians, it's very, very easy at a young age to understand diversity and have respect for where people came from, and to cherish that. And yes, we are all the same, but we have different environments that we grew up in, and that diversity creates beauty. And
Yeah.
that diversity creates new music, and that's to be cherished and loved. I don't know. I'm getting on a soapbox now, but
No, it is. I mean, it's a soapbox that I would gladly jump with you on top, because that's very much so. That's the reason why. I mean, without that, this country would not. If you think
I wouldn't
about
have
it,
jazz if it
we
wasn't.
wouldn't have that. It wouldn't
Have
have
jazz.
that. We wouldn't have
If
any
it
of that. And
if it wasn't there.
yeah, and if you think of how young this country is compared to all the other countries out there, and how prosperous this country is, happens fully because of all the ideas and all the cultures that came into one place to make it to make it exactly what it is.
It's our strength.
Yeah, yeah,
It is our strength that we have so many.
it sure
Um,
is.
It really is. Man, I love talking to you. Stay online with me. Thank you, everybody online. Check out all that stuff. Go through all these comments. There's so much cool stuff in these comments about everything from Loco Moco to Cilantro Boombox to artists to DJs to music. And let's see. Next week, I'm going to have Jana Pokop.
I
Next
love
month, I've also
it.
got Dalton Domino, Patrice Pike, and Malford Milligan's going to be coming in all the way from the Netherlands. And man, I even got a great March too. And you can go back and watch all of these shows. I keep them all up online. They're all archived. So if there's somebody back there that you wanted to see, they're there. And this will be up all week. Kalu, thank you, man.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
Appreciate that.
Bye, everybody online. Kalu, you stick with me.
Much love to y'all.
All right.